and we bring TSN's Vancouver bureau chief, the one and only, the Dean, Mr. Farhan Lalji, into the program.
We've Deanified him, have we? Okay.
The Dean. There. Even though he's retired, there's no other Dean.
Barry McDonald.
Yeah, come on, you know this. There's no other. Even in retirement, there's only one. You can't.
You're out there in the field. You're out there in the field daily on the Canucks, on the Lions.
Yeah,
there's not many others. Not many others left in the TV business.
There aren't. You know, we talked about this during the playoffs about how many of us were actually around covering this team in person on a day-to-day basis. You know, in 2011, and there was only 5 of us left, right? And I was second on the age list behind Ian McIntyre, which hit me in the face, just that realization. So, yeah.
This Luke Gazdic thing caught your ear, caught your eye. You wanted in on this.
Yeah, you know, it did. And I like Luke, and I like his analysis, but I get how he feels. And I say that because there is a toxicity, one element of both the Canucks and Twitter, or the Canucks and Oiler Twitter fan bases, that's gross, like completely gross. And so I get how he feels, because a couple of years ago, you know, I made a comment in response to an Eric Francis article about how McDavid was carrying the Oilers, right? And I responded and said that he is allowing this entire team to exist. And I probably should have pulled out Leon Draisaitl from that tweet, right? And done a notwithstanding. But anyway, like, oh my goodness, like the responses numbered above 1,000, to the point where I had to, and the vitriol that came back, like mute everything for a few days, because I still needed to get some CFL information out there, so I couldn't like get off Twitter entirely. But you realize that Twitter's not a real place, but at the same time, it does take you back. And so for me, I spent summers in Edmonton. My mom had 9 brothers and sisters in Edmonton. I spent time there in the summer, growing memories of Edmonton. I know there's good people there that I still spend time there with, but that particular experience can't help but take over how you feel about a fan base. Yeah. So if you're Luke Gazdic, you know, you can't help but think about that. I was surprised you went so far as to say the team sucked. That was a little much, but if that percentage of the Twitter fan base, of which Edmonton has the same, leaves you impacted, I feel you. I get it, right? And then you get, or go ahead.
Well, my point, Farhan, yesterday, and on this topic for some time now, is we do public jobs. People oftentimes don't like what we say or what we report. Part of the job is taking slings and arrows. You have 2 options: either read it and let it roll off your back, or don't read it at all. And that, you know, you need to rise above and not engage with the deepest recesses of Twitter or social media.
You know, Gord Miller doesn't read a single thing until he turns on his mentions, and I've got my mentions throttled to a point where, you know, only the top 10% of the replies get through. You know, people that I follow and you know, that sort of stuff. Like, I don't see the vitriol that I saw 10 years ago.
So, you know, and even if you can't adopt that as a personal policy, taking shots at an entire fan base on the eve of the Stanley Cup final, when your employer wants very much to cultivate them as viewers, is not exactly a great business tactic.
You know what, I couldn't agree more. And so, you know, when I got it, like, you know, I didn't go back, and the same thing here, right? Like, I limited a lot of that stuff, and certainly wound up muting a lot of people this time around that made it through on my mentions. But yeah, so you're 100% right. Right, at the end of the day, he does need to rise above it. He can feel the way he feels, but in terms of how you respond to it, I mean, you're not a big swipe at you know, at all of Edmonton, because they're still like the city, and you know, there's no way for that. But when I even provide my commentary here on this podcast, I'm still just talking. I'm really careful to talk about a specific portion of a specific fan base, as opposed to wiping all of Edmonton with a big broad brushstroke, because it's not that fan base. And if you look at Taj at the end of every, you know, Oiler game, and you see guys fighting, like you know that's not the entire fan base, right? So you just kind of have to take it all with a grain of salt, and you know, and Luke's still somewhat new at all of this, right?
I was going to say it's a rookie move. It's what it is. It's basically what it is. He'll learn from this.
And then here's the other thing too, is that, you know, you heard Bieksa talk about, you know, the meets or the media in Edmonton, and I think that we all don't want to view the concept of a Canada's team, right? Like, but we need an excuse because as media, for whatever reason, there's kind of an expectation that we buy in because we're all, and we are, but nobody really believes in the notion of a Canada's team in a domestic league, right? Like, it is fantasy. And so we all have to kind of come up with a reason. So, whatever our reasons here are, in this moment for not necessarily getting on board with Edmonton, they are. I remember 2011, probably the worst of that we found was from Edmonton media. And every single member of the Edmonton media, I really, really like and respect and view as a friend. But collectively, there was that, right? And in 2011, if you wanted to view the Canucks as, biters and divers and with the lens of Max Lapierre and maybe the worst of Alex Burrows, so that you could feel morally okay about not viewing the Canucks as Canada's team. Okay, but 12 years later or 13 years later, you probably think you should be viewing the Canucks through the lens of Daniel and Henrik Sedin. Because that really was what identified that era of Canuck, and there's a shame to that. So for me, like, you can say what you want about, Edmonton and Canada's team and all of that, but I think we all hope that at some point McDavid doesn't become that guy that's the best ever to never win. Like, he deserves a cup at some point in his career, does he not?
Oh, I mean, I think so. He is that level of talent. And,
we're both of the mind that it will happen. Like, he's going to get his.
Yeah, and I'm not hoping Edmonton wins by any stretch, but at some point at the end of his career, you hope this guy wins a cup.
Moving on. How about this ticket selling operation from the BC Lions? Or is it 50 Cent as a massive draw, or is it a combination thereof? But your thoughts on what is looking like a sold out BC place a week from Saturday?
I think it's a combination of both, and I'll tell you why. BC Place was virtually sold out for the season opener before they announced 50 Cent as the act. Now, everybody has an expectation that there's going to be a big time act, right? So there was enough faith in the Lions and Amar Doman in that organization that they were going to buy tickets before they knew it was 50 Cent. So, I do think it's a bit of both, right? And that now they have that, and now it's kind of become a thing. Oh, what? We got to 40? Oh, wait, we got to 50? I better buy every ticket left because I just want to be there, right? Regardless of all of it, it's kind of become that kind of thing. And now it's even extending over into the Grey Cup, where before you even announce the act, the lower bowl is virtually sold out. So what Amar Doman's doing, what the ticketing department is doing, and think about this from a math perspective. Let's say there are 30,000 additional fans for this opener at $50 a ticket for an average ticket price. And I think that's a low number. That's $1.5 million additional dollars for that game. So taking a bath on the concert, I got news for you. They're not. So, message to the rest of the Canadian Football League, and not everybody else has the ability to bring in 30,000 new fans to any given game. No. But it's a pretty awesome thing that they're doing, and I think it benefits the entire league, and everybody feels that way league-wide. It's a pretty cool thing.
I hope this team gels quickly so that they can show early enough that they keep as many butts in seats right to the end of the game. It'd be nice if we saw at least 40,000 people in the fourth quarter in those seats.
Hasn't been a problem last 2 years. They've scored early and often against Edmonton and Calgary.
Yeah, people have left because the game's gotten one-sided by the end of the game. They didn't want to stay for the game. So I totally agree with you. I mean, and it's hard for the players to not look ahead to that game this week. I was there yesterday, and they're talking about it. Like, they're into it. And, and it's not even the act. I think they're just into it to play in front of that many fans. I mean, if you're Travis Fulgham and you've spent time in the NFL, you were the leading receiver for the Eagles, right? And you're wondering what your first experience is going to be like. To have your first experience, at least at a home game like that, wow, right? So I think it's a cool thing for all concerned, and you will get the best of the Lions on that day.
What's the personality of the Lions? What can we expect this season, and maybe even early on here, just in terms of what will be better? What will they look like? Will they be a defensive leader, a points leader? What do you think?
I think there's a freshness to this team that's pretty cool to watch, and I think they're going to be better defensively. And I say that with the fact that they're going to potentially have 4 new starters in the secondary. Not potentially, right? And actually, Adrian Green did start the last few games last season, but you've got Gary Peters, the wily vet, and TJ Lee on the injured list until until September. But then after that, there's going to be some new guys, but there's still some excitement. And there's a belief that they can improve with the guys that they've added and got in that group, right? So if that part of the team, I think this defense can be lights out good, because Christian Covington is going to be a big time addition. It's going to shore up their run defense in a real hurry. So I think that defense can run around and fly around and be an exceptional group, as good as there is in the CFL. And offensively, into the offseason, I had some concerns about what it would look like at receiver without some key guys. But the correct context is that they rarely had those key guys as a group last year, right? I mean, there was never a time when Rhymes, Whitehead, and Hatcher were all on the field together doing great things. One of them was always hurt. Now they're going to try to have Fulgham and Eberhardt, and if they need to go deep to Berryhill, they have those guys to get them through until Hatcher comes back, and I think they can do more than get them through. So I think it's a good group. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this group.
Mm-hmm. So you think Covington can be that dominant, immediately? And I ask only because, Farhan, as you well know, Coach, the 1 yard off the line of scrimmage is a massive difference for linemen. And that it changes the blocking angles. It changes a whole lot about the interplay between O-line and D-line. You think Covington can be that good that soon, huh?
I do, and I think that you're 100% right, Matt. And it's a bigger advantage for the offensive lineman. It's a harder adjustment for the defensive lineman, because a guy can get up and get into you before you take that first step. But I do think he's lost a little bit of weight, not too much that he can't be a force against the run. And that's kind of where you want him right now, right? That's where this defense struggled, was against the run. So I think as the season progresses and he gets more comfortable, he'll be more effective as a pass rusher. But I think in the early going, he can fortify that run defense. And, this team's going to start at least one, maybe two extra Canadians. So they've got a flexibility that they can bring guys in and out. They can keep guys fresh. So, and here's the thing with Christian, is he's hungry to be here. You look at a guy like Daniel Joseph, who they waited 3 years to in the first round and came in here, and just the attitude wasn't right, and they moved on from him. Whereas, Christian knows what the CFL game is. His dad understood it and can kind of give him that extra advice. But there is a true pride, excitement, and authenticity for his enthusiasm to be here, and I think you'll see that in his play. He's going to be one to have all of his family and friends be there at that first regular season game, on the 14th.
If you've ever talked to Christian, he does not lack for enthusiasm or energy. No. So I'm not surprised.
Always smiling.
Drives me so crazy when the Canadian player comes back from Penn State or something like that with the attitude, right? I somewhat expect that from the American players, but when the Canadian players come do that and try and big league the CFL, it's just drives me crazy. So this has got to be Grey Cup or bust, right? I mean, you've been knocking the Winnipeg.
Yeah.
They're not even just happy to get to a Grey Cup, which they haven't been in 13 years. This is win the damn thing, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it has to be, right? If you're Vernon Adams, that's the next step you've got to take. Show you can get through a Western final, get there. And when you get there, you don't have these opportunities forever. And collectively for the organization, the owner is doing everything possible to put you in the place to have that level of success. And, people around the league who have their home team favorites, all of them are kind of rooting for Amar Doman, right? If your own team can't win it, you hope this guy gets rewarded. But yeah, I mean, Vernon and the coaching staff and the organization, Neil McAvoy and Rick Kent, here to believe that consistency and stability is what drives success in this quick fix league, right? That, because there's only 9 teams, nobody believes you have time to grow. Everybody has to win every year. Well, this team's had the opportunity to grow. So, they took growing, significantly better. In the first 2 years last year, they weren't necessarily significantly better. They treaded water. This year's that time. So Grey Cup or bust is an absolutely fair assessment of this organization's expectations this year.
Can I ask you a hot button topic that we've talked about in years gone by? And I wonder where we're at right now, especially with a particular quarterback now on the sidelines because of his behavior.
Although he settled his lawsuits.
He settled
the Argonauts as well.
What's the status of quarterbacking in the Canadian Football League right now? We've been mildly concerned about that in recent years. Where are we right now on this league getting difference makers, stars to move the football?
Yeah, I think it's a real question and concern. And initially when we saw it, people are like, "Oh, well, we're just coming out of COVID, and it takes time." And I don't think this league does a good job of developing young quarterbacks. And you've got some guys that last year were forced into like Dustin Crum in Ottawa and Taylor Powell in Hamilton, and they showed mixed results, but enough to kind of continue to build on. There's no plan. Like the last time I saw a plan was Nathan Rourke to a point, right? But even that was forced by Mike Riley's injuries in training camp to the point where he got not only all the reps in training camp, but most of the reps in practice during the regular season, where they're like, okay, we think we got a guy. And before that, you probably have to go back to Bo Levi Mitchell, where a team signed a guy, brought him in, and knew that within 2 years he was going to be the starter, and a plan was created to make him the starter with a bridge quarterback. This team doesn't do a good job. And I think one of the things that's made it worse is the advent of the third quarterback, which now for everybody's just a short yardage plunger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that spot should have been a developmental spot. And now everybody's trying to find big physical bodies that can just execute the 1 yard plunge. And I think the league is self a disservice. So, I think the top end is still really good, right? Whether you're Zach Caleros or Vernon Adams. And, but after that, I think a lot of teams have questions, right? If you're Cody Fajardo, you had a great Grey Cup, right? You had a great Grey Cup, and can you build on that? Because more is going to be, I don't know if Chad Kelly ever plays in this league again, right? So we'll see how he responds. I know the settlements happen, but there's still got to be more before there's a blessing from MLSC and the Canadian Football League here that you come back. So I don't know that he'll ever play again. And so what does Cameron Dukes do?
Farhan. He wins some games. He'll be back. He'll serve his 9 games and he'll be back. They're not going to draw a lot.
Believe me, this is not going to be as simple as you think. So I think okay. Well, we'll have to talk about it off the air, but I don't believe this is as simple as simple as you think. So So, but nonetheless, there are questions around the league, and guys are going to be thrust in. What does Drew Brown do in his first opportunity as a starter in Ottawa? So, some of those guys that are going to get into those spots have a little bit of runway. So I think that's encouraging. But overall, I'd like to see the league take some approach back in the offseason to address the issue, to ensure development and to ensure that you guys just take a look at people and aren't operating. Like last year, the Lions' third quarterback was a 35-year-old who was never good in this league. And Dom Davis, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, no, you're quite right. Calgary tried with Jake Meyer, but he just wasn't good enough.
What's happening with
secondly,
what's happening with Tunga Viola though? Is he coming in?
Well, we'll see. But,
he's not good. He's not good.
He's not good.
That's not the answer. That's the name. Okay. That's not a good answer.
Okay. Yeah. Lucky shot from that Fajardo guy in the Grey Cup last year, incidentally. And
you and I don't entirely disagree on this topic, Matt.
See, here's the other thing. There were a lot of people who felt like me who just didn't quite put it in that articulation. So I wear it.
No, the thing is he's such a good guy, and he's so incredibly likable.
Yeah,
that
when
you want to believe.
When he retires, I will tell the story as to who put me on to what the hell are they doing with Cody Fajardo. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in this guy for a second, but we're a couple of years from that, I'm sure. And Blake, just so you know,
I think I know who it is too. I think I know who it is.
I think you probably do. Just so you know, quarterbacking is about to get a lot brighter in the Canadian Football League. About 7 or 8 years. There's a real real up and comer in Washington right now playing high school football, who's eventually going to matriculate to the league. Lastly, tough question: 50 or 50? Which one are you going with?
I'm going with 50.
Yeah, I thought I heard it.
Pretend I'm young and hip.
Yeah, FIDDY. Yeah, 50.
I think I'm going 50.
You're allowed to pretend.
It's all it is.
Really looking forward to the ball game on Sunday, and of course, hugely looking forward to the event that is Fitty and the Lions a week from Saturday at BC Place. Have a great opening week.
What you're looking forward to, Matt. You're looking forward to September. You're going right there. We're going, And
Farhan is trying to get
promise me
us tickets
promise
to
me
the
you won't.
Washington game in October.
Yeah, just promise me that you're not going to use foul language around my
I will
young
not.
impressionable son.
No, I will be on my best behavior.
I'll drive down for tailgate.
Mhm.
Okay.
Done.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.